There it goes. It's working. Yeah.
He's not here, and neither is Jake. Oh, there's him.
Mr. Russo. Fair housing month, huh? Are we supposed to stick these on our coat?
No, I should do that.
Steve? Hey, Steve, we're supposed to stick these on, aren't we? How about let's keep our housing week?
Yeah, keep our housing.
Yeah.
Yes. When we get to the public hearings.
Woke up at 3 o'clock this morning for some reason, and then I had trouble going back to sleep. It's interesting. They're going to have that ceremony here for
Really? At 3
6
o'clock?
months. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, inside here.
Thursday afternoon.
3 o'clock.
Hey, Gene.
Yeah, how you doing?
So it was. Okay, good. It's usually me.
Yeah. Hey, good morning and welcome to the April 7th Board of Supervisors meeting. We're glad to see so many bright and shiny faces here this morning. If you would please stand and join with me as we pledge allegiance to the flag and then remain standing for a moment of silence. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, the first item on our agenda is a happy one. I enjoy happy agenda items, as do the rest of the board members. I see Brian Lewis, our librarian, walking forward, and we'll turn a few moments of time over to him before we make a proclamation. Mr.
Thank
Lewis.
you, Chairman Cox. Thank you, Board CAO. Today is a happy day. It's one of the best days of the year for me. It's when we have literacy proclamation for Tulare County Literacy Day. Our literacy program's on its 9th year. We're doing very, very well thanks to Pat Hobbick, the other literacy directors in the county, and all of our wonderful volunteers. It's even needed more today because of the bad economy. So we have people coming in to get their GEDs. They've had jobs before that did not require it. Now they need it. All of a sudden, they have to do a resume online because it's the only way it's accepted. They don't know how to use the computer well enough to do it, or to write a resume, or to fill out an application. So not only is our literacy center at an all-time busy high, but so is our library, because we have the same thing. I'm very proud of our literacy program. We have a wonderful literacy director who I'd like to introduce now, who will take over the rest of the time, and that's Pat Hoppick.
Welcome,
Morning.
Pat.
Here we are again. It just gets better, doesn't it? Thank you for having us. We are excited about this. Is our 9th year, if you can believe that. I remember standing in front of you 8 years ago saying, we have 40 people that we're serving. Now we have over 100 customers and volunteer tutors. And we're here to kind of also tell you about who some of our partners are. Health and Human Services have discovered that we can serve their customers who are job seekers that need literacy skills, and we've invited them, and they're here. If Health and Human Services folks stand up, and we can thank you for being our great partner this year. Thanks to Cheryl Sheragino and the Sheriff's Department, we won, as you know, our International Award for Jailhouse Rocks last year. And Cheryl's in the back hiding. But Cheryl, thank you for being here. With our Health and Human Services program, and as Brian mentioned, a lot of our customers are job seekers, and they need literacy skills before they can get a job. Wynn Doyle has been with us just over a year and a half, and Wynn has put that program together and has been our very effective liaison, and she lives in our office in the corner. Wynn? We're serving we've served about 130 inmates at Jailhouse Rocks, by the way, this year, and with our volunteers. And of course, as Supervisor Cox mentioned last year, without our 120 volunteers, we couldn't do any of this. And it's a great joy to drive down the hill, usually, to come to work, except for the snow. I mean, the job's fine, the snow isn't. This year, our theme is Success is a Journey, and we've had a lot of folks who've come on a long journey. I'd like to introduce a couple of people to you. Tiffany came to the Literacy Center just a few months ago, and she said, I have about 4 months, I need to get my GED. Yeah, okay. And I'd like to introduce you to Tiffany, who, by the way, is one test short of her GED. Tiffany?
Great.
Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I'm from Fresno. I am 22 years old. I dropped out of high school my senior year, living the party life, and never ever thought that I would come back and get my GED. It just wasn't important to me. Now getting my life back on track and realizing that if I ever want to be something in life and do anything important, that I need my GED. So through the literacy program and my tutor, they have made that possible for me. It's an awesome program. I never thought that I would get it this quick. I hoped I did, but I didn't think I would. So like she said, I'm one test away, and after that I plan on getting a job and probably going back to college. So I just thank you guys.
Great. Thank you.
We've got another fast burner. John came in. He's going to tell you this story, but I'm going to one-up him. John came in. He was over at Pine Recover, and he said, I need a resume. I said, I don't do resumes for folks who aren't enrolled with us. He said, but Steve said you'd do a resume for me. Fine, let's do a resume. He walked out, and I said, if you decide to get your GED, come back and see us, but we won't see you. Well, he's almost got his GED. This is John.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John. I'm a recovering addict living here in Visalia. When I came and met Pat, like she said, I came for a resume, and she placed a little challenge there in front of me, that if I could come back, or if I got a job, I wouldn't make it back to the Literacy Center to get my GED, and it was something that I really needed to get done. At that point in time, I made that decision that, look, I'm going to show her, and I came back. I'm 2 tests away from getting the GED. I live here in Visalia, gainfully employed, recovering addict with 3 years clean. if it wasn't for her and the volunteers and my tutor, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today, you know, with the education process, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
So this gal walked in the office, this is not a joke, this gal walked in the office one day and she said, you know, I've been out of the workforce a while and I've got to get a job and I really need to improve my literacy skills. And we got to know Sharon a little bit better, and she's working toward her GED, and she really likes working with kids. I said, well, why don't you volunteer with one of our early literacy programs? And I'll let her tell you the rest of the story.
Hi, my name is Sharon Sanderson. I'm 62 years old. As a result from an injury about 5 years ago, I lost my job and I didn't have no education. And as a result, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I need my diploma, and I was terrified. I was totally terrified that here I am, no job, no high school diploma. And so I walked into the Literacy Center, biggest challenge of my life to walk in there. And as a result, I started working on my GED. And I told Pat, I said, she asked me, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I need more money. I need a job. So she helped me with being trained through AARP, and she hosted me at the Literacy Center. And as a result, from being trained there, I got hired through the county as an extra hire. And I'm working on my GED. I have 2 tests left, and I am running the ELF program, which is our early learning families, and it's a great challenge for me. And as I said, the Literacy Center is changing lives every day. They have changed my life. It's just unbelievable, and I'm so proud to be part of that.
Thank you.
Even I've got tears. Finally, I want to introduce to you the representative for our tutors. Vicky's been with us, Vicki Setzer's been with us since 2002. She came in and she said, I just want to find out what this tutoring thing's about. And people now, I think the word's out. They come in the door to ask the question, we lock the door, and they have to sign the form, and then they can leave. Is that how it went, Vicki? Something like that. She has tutored 17 customers. Now, that's not the record. Dave Miner is in our audience, and his record is 24 customers that have come and gone through Dave's life. We handed you a brochure that Wen Doyle put together, and it's stories of about 12 of our literacy customers. And you'll note in there that even though not everybody stays with us, we've touched their lives just for that little moment that they stayed. So without further ado, here's Vicki Setzer.
Thank you, Pat. I'm honored to have been a tutor with the Tulare Adult Literacy Program for, Pat says, 7 years. It seems like it was yesterday. Everyone involved in the program appreciates the support of the county, our county librarian, Brian Lewis, and Pat Heibeck, our program director. But today, we honor our students. Today is Adult Literacy Day. All of those who have stepped through the doors of the Literacy Center to improve their daily life deserve credit. Whether it's a customer from the Tulare Workforce Program or from the Workforce Development Program, or an individual who wants to improve, learn their ABCs, learn to read, we can help. We will help them improve their skills so they can read the job application, the job announcements, get the job, get a promotion. As a tutor, I've specialized in helping our students get their GED. Customers have been out of school, as you've heard, a year, 20 years, 30 years. They might be a drug court program student. They might be a parent who wants to set a good example for their family, or as Sharon indicated, someone who wants to improve her future life. Tutors help them prepare for the 5 tests. Learning and success takes place every day. We use books, we use newspapers, we use advertisements, we use the library, we use life experiences, we use household items. A pizza pie can teach math. The students have successes every day. Some are little. They did okay on that lesson plan. Some are huge. They passed the test. But every day they have successes, and some finish in 6 months, and some finish in 2 years. It doesn't matter. It's their success. I've had customers who haven't completed the program, but I have many, many more who have graduated. Customers pass their GED test, get their driver's license, become citizens, learn to read to their grandchildren and their children, find employment, get promoted. That happens every day at the Literacy Center. Tulare County hired one of my graduates a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to say she's still employed by the county and doing well. Everyone who receives service from the Tulare County Literacy Program makes this county stronger, helps them function better, and contribute to this county. Literacy is an investment that we all make. So I thank you for your support.
Jeez, that was good. I'm going to retire next year in October. Remember Vicki Setzer. In summary, I just want to let you know we continue to grow with our early literacy programs and Every Child Ready to Read when we go out in the communities and teach parents to get kids ready to read. Our ELF program, which is this wildly successful once-a-month book club for kids 0 to 5 and their parents in the Literacy Center, 80 kids. For those of you who've been to the Literacy Center, picture that. We wanted to let you know that we do appreciate your support, as Vicki said, and the support of all of our partners here in the audience. And we know how important it is to catch those kids when they're small, the junior high kids, the high school kids that use the library homework center, so they don't become members of our Read to Succeed team in later life. And we thank you for your support.
Thank you. We do have a proclamation proclaiming today Adult Literacy Day in Tulare County, and something you didn't do, I'd like to, all of the tutors that are here, normally we have those folks, and I recognize several, if we could, and Brian, Pat, I don't know if this would be appropriate, I'd like to get all the folks up here maybe for the picture, because I see students, I see tutors. So if we get everybody that's involved with the program to come up here and we'll meet in the pit.
I don't want to meet anybody in the pit.
We call this the pit.
Oh.
I call it.
The well. The well.
You say tomato, I say tomato, is that what? Well, while they're coming up, I want to thank Brian and Pat for the opportunity they give me occasionally to participate in a little graduation or celebrations. They always have great cake over there when they have their celebrations, and I understand there's a little reception afterwards now, so those folks that are lucky enough to get out of here early might run over there for the reception. But I'd like to present this proclamation. Wow. I don't know who to give it to. The learners are why we're really here today. The tutors are here for support, and I see Pat and Brian as supporting the program. So I want to thank all of them for for doing what they do. What the service they provide is a great service for the citizens of Tulare County, and just not Tulare County, right, Pat? We actually travel over into Hanford as well, so great program. And I'm going to present this proclamation. I'm not going to read it, although I can. I'm going to present this proclamation declaring Tuesday, April 7th, 2009 as Adult Literacy Day in Tulare County. Kind of cuddle up here so we get one of the picture. One more. Someone had their head turned. I saw it down there. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good time.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, since this is a request, may I have a vote on the,
We will need to, this is listed as a action item.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by
Second.
Supervisor Worley, second by Ennis. We've all voted, and it is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
For attending today, and you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to.
Especially if you have cake.
And I do look forward to reading this pamphlet. It's my intention to move through the presentations before we have our public hearing, so those of you that have presentations that are in the 20s and 30s, we will be making those presentations before we go to our public hearings today. Next, I'd like to move to public comments. Anyone having something they would like to address this board on that is not on today's agenda, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. We have allotted 15-minute time slot for public comments and 3 minutes each person. So if you would, please step forward. And I pulled that mic around, sir. If you can pull that around to you, I'd thank you. So your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Steve Nelson. I live at 625 East Babcock, Visalia, California. In the northeast section of Visalia, I'm here to talk about the new FEMA map. I have lived in my home for 19 years. The only thing that has changed in my neighborhood is the age of the house and the tallness of the trees. In the 19 years I've lived there, the dam has been raised for conservation and flood prevention. And since the dam was built, we have not had a flood in the city of Visalia. The last flood was in 1955. The dam was improved to withstand a 100-year weather phenomenon. 198 has been built to handle the flow of water, and if you believe Al Gore and other politicians, we're in global warming. In that 19 years, I have gone through water rationing, and I'm currently in a drought situation. The three of these combined, we have a very minute chance of a flood. None of this information was used in the current data to surmise we need flood insurance. What we really need to worry about in Tulare County is where we're going to have enough rain and snowpack in the coming years to handle our population. Recently, I have seen the sales tax increase by 1%, car registration go up, personal income tax go up, my value of my house has decreased 38% in a year, my IRA has decreased over 50%, and now you want to give me a tax of $800 to $1,400 a year. I have penciled it out. If you take a 10% increase that Congress is allowed to give every year, in 20 years my premium will be over $6,000. I have a higher percentage chance of being robbed, my house burning, or someone falling at my house than having a flood, and yet my homeowner's insurance is a lot less than flood insurance. We pay the same premium as New Orleans and the southern coastal states. FEMA is the same agency that had the data about New Orleans and Katrina. Their data was flawed then, and it's flawed now. History shows they are a bureaucracy out of control. They dictate the level of severity and also the cost of the insurance. This reeks of conflict of interest. It's like giving the keys to the wolf and have him take care of the hen house. People are asking why I'm doing this. A lady from Diane Feinstein's asked this. She says, Steve, what are you trying to accomplish? What I'm trying to accomplish is an injunction to stop the implementation of this program that's going to start on June 16th. Why am I doing this? I'm doing it for the people I met at the last 3 meetings. And I'm sorry to say the FEMA meetings, I did not see one board member at the FEMA meetings, which is sad because your constituents were there. I talked to a lady on a Wednesday night. She's in total shock. She's in disbelief. She goes, what am I going to do? I talked to a lady on Thursday night in tears, and she flat told me, she says, I'm going to lose my home. And I have sorry to say, I looked at her in the eyes and I said, you know what? On the presentation tonight, the lady that talked about the insurance that said it's going to come anyway, I told her they don't care. I'm asking that you prove me wrong. It's because of the inaction of this board and the City of Visalia City Council that we're in this situation today. If you pencil out with an inflation rate of 10% every year, in 20 years, the citizens of this county will pay over $555 million to the federal government. Why can't we have a district and put an assessment on our property taxes of $100 a year to all the homeowners, and within 20 years we'll have paid back $18 million for the improvement of levees? Let's keep the money in Tulare. Let's put people to work. As I talked to a young man at the Sportsman's Warehouse the day it was announced they were closing, we talked to him, he said, what happened? He goes, I don't know. I asked the young man, do you have a family? He goes, yes, I do. I asked him again, what are you going to do? With tears in his eyes, he says, I don't know. These people are going to be assessed $800 to $1,400 a year and go up there every year thereafter. This is a travesty, and the board needs to act. What I'm asking for is the board submit their county attorney to file a federal injunction. If we can stop logging in the Northern California because of a spotted owl, if we can stop water to our farmers on the west side because of a fish, if we can stop construction in the Conchili Valley because of a lizard, I think our citizens deserve more than this, and I think you guys have the application to be able to do that with the city or the district attorney. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Britton Schwartz, and I'm a legal consultant for the Community Water Center based here in Visalia. I wanted to thank the board for this opportunity to address you. I'm just here to remind the board of your commitment to review the request that the community of Seville has made, that the county serve as the temporary receiver for the community's water system, which, as you know, is in a crisis situation. We were told over a month ago that the board would be reconsidering that request after having some time to review the complexities of the issue, either last week or at this meeting, and we've seen that it's not on the agenda. It wasn't on the agenda last week either. And we just want to remind the board that this is very much a priority for the community. The community is very concerned about the state of their water system, and there's very little that can be done until a receiver is put in place. People are very concerned that they will be left without water as we move into the hot summer months. So we just want to remind the board that they've committed to consider this issue, and we hope that you will do so with all possible speed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning to everybody. My name is Alex Guerrero. I'm here on behalf of the Committee for a Better Seville.
Your address, please.
Excuse me?
Your address, please.
Oh, I live at 15510 Avenue 381. That's Visalia. Well, like I said, I just wanted to kind of share a little bit of my childhood with relevance to what was just said. You know, as a young child, I remember you know, coming from school, and my mom used to always say, hey, you know, when you get home, you know, I like for you to help out around the house, you know, sweep the house, whatever. And I would sweep the house. And being as a young kid, I was, you know, I would always find ways to make my job a little easier, better, faster. Once I was done sweeping the house, what I do is find a place where I can, you know, I would just concentrate on the biggest stuff I can pick up, and the rest I would just shove it under the mat or the table, wherever my mom couldn't see it. I figured, hey, she's not going to find out, so I'll do that and I'll get out of it faster. So where relevance to that is, all I'm saying is, you know, this issue about the Seville water, no matter how many times we try to kick it under the table or put it under the mat, sooner or later I would find myself staring at that dirt back again. And this is a problem that has to be dealt with because no matter how we try to run away from it, it's always going to come back and bite and bite every single one of us in the rear end. So hopefully, like I said, I feel like it's been long enough. I don't know what the dilemma is or the holdback is to simply give us a yes or no answer. That's basically what this community is looking for. I know there's a lot of legalities that need to go through, but if it's something that it's taken this long, I think my community and I also deserve a simple yes or no, so we can move on and figure out what our next plan will be to get this dealt with properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board during the public comment period? Seeing none, we will move to supervisors matters. Supervisor Ennis.
Yes, we had a meeting yesterday at the executive committee on the Success Dam, and we'll be able to hold back a little more water this year. Hopefully be able to hold the water till the end of May. Would give us between 40 and 45,000 acre feet, which would be up from 30,000 last year. So that will help with some of the water problems in the area. I know we're going to get 85% of our water through the Friant for the #1 water users out there. So if we can store a little more water a little later, it'll help our farmers later on into the summer. So some good news. And of course the dam hopefully is still on schedule. Supposed to start acquiring property in August. It'll be about an 18-month process. And then once that's finalized, then the project will go to bid and hopefully go to construction in 2011. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Sheena.
Well, obviously, last week I wasn't here. Last week I was invited by the House minority staff on the Committee of Natural Resources to testify in front of the committee about the California drought. The main issue with the California drought is even though we had over 80% normal precipitation this year, Westland's Water District and many of the users on the Central Valley project received 0 allocations. We have a 40% unemployment rate in Mendota. There are farmers in San Diego who will lose their avocado orchards this year because we were not able to pump water out of the Delta and put it in the Central Valley project. We figure the University of California estimates between 40 to 80,000 people will be put out of work this year just due to the fact we weren't able to transfer water out of the Delta. While I was there, I also met with Senator Feinstein's staff to talk about a program that we initiated in Tulare County, which was mentoring foster children with county employees. And I think Dave's here somewhere. Yeah, Dave's here. And I referred any inquiries to Dave Crawford, who ran the program, because Senator Feinstein is writing a federal bill on gang prevention and at-risk youth. So hopefully, Dave, they'll be giving you a call shortly. They're writing the bill right now. I also met with the USDA about disadvantaged community grants for water, and we met with some of the higher administrative people, and there are quite a few funds available in the Farm Bill, which we will be attempting to secure for our communities. Also, I caught my cold again, so Washington, D.C. must be full of germs.
Stay away from me.
Yesterday, I had the pleasure of being in Three Rivers, and we had a photo op for Cherokee Oaks. And Cherokee Oaks, we widened the bridge so we could have easy ingress and egress in case of an emergency. It was a project that was sponsored by Measure R money. What we did in Three Rivers several years ago when Measure R money became available, we had a town meeting. And in that town meeting, the people in the community decided that there was a road that needed to be fixed instead of breaking up, doing small sections of roads, some in the community said, okay, we'll fix this road first, and then the next 2 years, we'll come back and do Cherokee Oaks, and that's what's happened. And we found in these community meetings that a lot of these communities are very willing to share with their neighbors projects to where we can at least get a project completed instead of doing segmented road repair. So I'm very proud of our communities in Tulare County on the way they are expending Measure R money for road improvements. And that's all I have.
Okay, Supervisor Worthley.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. First, I would like to comment on, I hope we do have this thing scheduled, re-agendized for the water issues in Seville, because we are supposed to have that brought back to us for consideration. Also, at the board, I met at a budget meeting for the Air District, San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District the other day, and there will be a substantial amount of dollars available for truck replacement, engine replacement, which is advantageous for the citizens of Tulare County as well as governments of Tulare County to try to take advantage of those dollars so that there's a matching type of a grant. They don't give you 100%, but they'll go up to 50% on replacement. Last year we were oversubscribed by 150%. So obviously the demand is much greater than the money we have available, but there is a substantial sum of dollars there. So I would like Tulare County to be sure and get its fair share of that. Just a comment made about the FEMA map situation, and I think we do recognize there's an opportunity here to look at, when you look at the cost of insurance, an opportunity to resurrect perhaps the existing levy special districts with the idea of creating an assessment so that we could certify these levies. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done to do that. That's not something which can be done overnight in this world we live in today of environmental rules and regulations. You just don't go in with a bulldozer and bulldoze down the levees and reconstruct them. But the process needs to begin, and that would be obviously a very good solution to this problem. And given the cost for this insurance, probably a much smaller sum could be done to make those fixes. So I think the point is well taken, and I have nothing else to say.
Supervisor Vanderpool.
Today I have a mental health board meeting, and we are going to be discussing, at least I know I will be specifically bringing up Proposition 1E that's going to be coming up in May, and hopefully we're going to be figuring out a way that we can really ramp up and get out and educate the voters and the populace as to why they need to vote against the measure, and hopefully we'll be able to get that campaign going successfully in Tulare County. And also I'm going to be heading up to Sacramento this week for my final session of the CSAC New Supervisors Institute. So I will be a certified new supervisor after this Thursday.
Although all of his votes have counted. I have a few things. First, to remind you, we are going to do the presentations and consent calendar before we go to the public hearings. I anticipate this to take about 30 minutes. Each of the presenters have been told they have a 10-minute time slot for their presentation. So we will have approximately 30 minutes of presentations to the board before we do the public hearings. And if I can get Mr. Nelson to leave his contact information at the front desk, so that you'll know these meetings that were being held were sponsored by us, were called by this board. I myself attended the FEMA meetings over a year ago while they were going through the mapping process, and there were no public at those meetings. I was the only public at the meetings when they were having their public meetings, and it is, and I have to agree with you that this is not a great thing that's happened, but it's a federal program, and we are looking for remedies. This board, along with the city of Visalia, worked with a consultant, looked at the St. John's levees, and discovered it's between $16 and $25 million to repair those levees within the city of Visalia's boundaries. So there was a lot of work done on this for 2 years before these maps even hit the market, because we knew they were not going to be in our favor. So if we can get your contact information left at the front desk, I would appreciate that. We have in the Sheriff's Department, there was a new appointment made, or I guess we could say elevated, but when your title starts out with under, I don't know how you can consider yourself elevated, but he does know exactly where he stands. We do have a new under sheriff, Dal Cleet. Could we have you? Yeah, we'd even like you to come up here and say a couple of words, Under Sheriff Cleet. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. It's an honor. It's going to be, I think, a challenge to fill the shoes of Under Sheriff retired David Whaley. He did an exceptional job. He was truly committed to the citizens of Tulare County and to the Sheriff's Department. So I know that I have a challenge ahead of me, but we have a lot of great people within the Sheriff's Department. I really look forward to working with all the members of the board and the CAO's office and the department heads and all the members or the people that work within the departments of the county. And we look forward to serving the citizens of Tulare County, and we hope to continue developing and fostering relationships and providing the best quality of law enforcement in Tulare County. So thank you for allowing me to come up today and recognizing me.
Great. Thank you. Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Okay, I'd like to move to the consent calendar, items 7 through 28. We will pull items 8 and 25, 8 for clarification, 25 for separate consideration. Are there any other items from the consent calendar that the board or the public would like pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, move for approval, items 7 through 28, less items 8 and 27.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Ennis, second by Supervisor Ishida. Unanimous. Number 8, Rita. I understand we have a clarification to make.
Michelle.
Juan.
Morning, I'm Rita Woodard, Tulare County Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Registrar of Voters. While I'm here as the tax collector, I'd like to remind everybody that Friday is April 10, and the second installment of property taxes will be delinquent after that date. So if everybody come in and pay early, you won't get that 10% penalty. Got to slip it in when you can, right? Today I'm here as a Registrar of Voters.
Pay on the 13th, correct?
Pardon?
If you don't pay on the 10th, pay on the 13th, and we'll gladly accept the penalty.
I would gladly accept the penalty, yes, but, you know, it is hard to economic times, so just one little day can make a difference. Today we're here for clarification on the item. The first agenda item submitted had the revenue listed as where the money was going to come from contingencies. Now we're changing it to Agency 012 for the miscellaneous admin. This is for a replacement server in the elections department. This server is the same age as the one that failed recently at the recorder's office. I'm sure you saw that action and heard the complaints. This one's been repaired a couple times and is now making really nice noises. And we do have an election coming May 19th, and we need to get it in there now. So it is a standalone server to protect the integrity of the election process and cannot be connected to the IT server bank at all. So it's something that's needed desperately right now.
So the change that's being made to the agenda item is what?
To move it on the sheet I just handed you here, action C there is to the Department 012 instead of from contingencies, which was on the original one.
Approval, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Worthley, second by Ennis. Please cast your votes. And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will take now item number 25 for consideration. I pulled this item just so that I could cast my standard no vote as far as Williamson Act anything is concerned. So we'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Moved by Supervisor Vanderpool, second by Ennis. Cast your votes. It was 4-1, Cox voting no. Okay, we will now move to our untimed items. Number 29 is a request from our district attorney, Mr. Phil Klein. And I do still receive mail for you occasionally, Mr. Klein.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board. I was told I had limited time this morning. Saw some grant money. Got together with police departments, applied for it. It's $1 million. Got any questions?
Well, we said limited time, but we didn't say, cut it to beyond the bare bones.
This is a joint application that, by definition of the grant, which comes under the Recovery Act, Tulare County is a disparate jurisdiction. There's a particular definition that's in the agenda item that defines that. That required the cities and the county agencies to come together. We went over the funding that was available, reached an agreement as how that funding would be dispersed among the different agencies as well as the county. I think the county is getting in excess $300,000 of the grant. The district attorney's office will be the financial agent and administrator of the grant. It is under, like I said, the Recovery Act. Its primary purpose is to preserve jobs or to create jobs. Although a certain percentage of the money is going toward equipment funding, it is related to preserving jobs in the grant, because it would not be possible to preserve some of these jobs had not this funding be available.
Is that good? Any questions of the board?
No. Move approval.
Moved by Supervisor Sheeta, second by Supervisor Vanderpool. Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Klein, thank you very much. We're always excited to receive grant monies, and we're glad to see that it was a collaborative effort as well. Next, we have item number 30 is a request from our fire department. Chief Sunderland.
Good morning, Chairman Cox, members of the board. Steve Sunderland, Fire Chief, Tulare County Fire Department. Bear with me for just a moment while I make Oh, I've got it here, but there we go. I'm not alone today. I've also invited Mr. Dan Lynch to join us this morning. He's the administrator of the Central California Emergency Services Agency that oversees the circumstance of emergency medical service for our county, as well as Kings and Fresno and Madera. He will be available to you to answer specific CCEMSA policy questions. I'm here today to describe to you the circumstance of some change. We have an opportunity to reduce our response numbers to emergency medical aids. The new policy went into effect, this is the EMS policy for the county, went into effect March 1st. Created the governance relative to a countywide EMS agency. It allows dispatchers to prioritize calls at the ambulance dispatch center. It actually defines what call priority values are, and it ranks the event using a numerical value, such as a priority 1, priority 2, 3 through 8. It's the priority 2 through 8 calls that we're looking to modify our response numbers. Priority 1 call, I want to call your attention to the language there. Excuse me for such a wordy slide. That is the definition in the policy of what priority 1 represents, but the verbiage in bold is the lights and siren immediate response for a presumed life-threatening condition. It also goes on to say that the closest non-transport first responder unit should be dispatched. That's us. We are non-transport first responder. Our training level is that of public safety first aid. It's not EMT, we're not in the paramedic business, and so forth. In the priority 2 definition, it describes in the body of it that in an urban setting with rapid ambulance response times, the response of a non-transport first responder unit is not necessary, as the need for immediate basic life support intervention is limited. But however, in those rural, remote wilderness areas, indeed because of the long-term travel time it takes for the ambulance companies to arrive, we agree we should continue to be dispatched to all the calls in those, or the priority 1 and 2 calls in those kinds of areas. What remains the same is that, as recommended in the priority 1 and 2 descriptions, the fire department continues to respond to priority 1 and 2 calls in our service area where there's no ambulance coverage nearby or immediately available. Our proposed change is that within the city's urban development boundaries, the fire department will discontinue its EMS priority 2 response to those areas that are immediately adjacent to the cities which experience that definable rapid ambulance response time. Throughout the remainder of the county, county protected areas, the fire department may, after evaluation, no longer respond to priority 3 through 8. Priority 3 through 8 calls are they're presumed to be non-life threatening. It's not a lights and siren type of a response. Right now, everything we go out the door to is lights and siren. Everything is considered a life-threatening call because we don't get the advantage of the call screening that's being done at the ambulance dispatcher. And that's the change. We're going to start receiving our call information from the ambulance dispatcher rather than from the sheriff's dispatcher. The areas affected, if you can make out let's take Porterville for instance. There's a powder blue line around Porterville and Visalia, Tulare, Lindsay, Exeter, Farmersville, and Dinuba. Inside that blue line, that's the county area that lies between the urban development boundary and the city limits, and that's the affected area that we're proposing to make this change in. For the balance of the county, the Pixleys, the Alpaws, the Cutler-Arossi, the Ivanhoes, we will continue to respond to priority 1 and 2 calls, business as usual. This is what the priority 1 call traffic looked like for 2008. As you can see, the clusters are primarily around all of the cities. And this is just for the area, say, that falls inside that urban development boundary. This is priority 1 traffic only. This is priority 1 through 3 that we currently go to. So you can see there's a distinct number, and then again, the priority 1 traffic. We think that we will reduce our call volume almost immediately by 800 calls a year. Should we be fortunate enough to experience ambulance posting every day of the week at our Station 4, which is the Cutler Station, we may even see that increase by 500 to 600 more calls. Right now, the ambulance provider is posting there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evening, but should it turn into an everyday circumstance, it would be even more beneficial to the fire department. The process that we've engaged, we've not done this in a vacuum. We have included the TCAD, the ambulance dispatch leadership, the sheriff's dispatch leadership, the Emergency Medical Care Committee, and the CCEMSA. We have prepared and distributed a press release just about 2 weeks ago announcing the intended change. We did get an initial flood of phone calls. We explained what we were proposing, and I saw one article in the Fresno Bee. I didn't notice anything in the Times Delta locally. We have prepared, and we're ready to distribute a notice of change to the ambulance providers. Our anticipated outcomes are a reduction of redundant service delivery. Typically in those urban development areas, we're either pushing the bumper of the ambulance or they're pushing us. We're arriving that close to one another on those calls. There would be more available time for fire department mission-driven activity. We will reduce our fire engine movements, we think initially by as many as 800 calls, and the Labor Association actually supports this change. That's the end of the presentation. Our request is that we're asking that you approve the requested change to discontinue Fire Department Priority 2 EMS responses to areas immediately adjacent to cities which experience that rapid ambulance response time, and to confirm the fire chief's authority to evaluate and modify the fire department's response to all lower level priority 3 through 8 calls throughout the county protected area. And we anticipate a May 1 implementation date.
Questions? Yes.
Well, first I wanted to say thank you for bringing this to us. This has been a desire of the board for some time, and what was lacking was that ability to do that proper screening, so that when calls came in, it was just sort of assumed the worst, and so we sent people every time. This ability to be more discerning is really no loss of service level, because we're really dealing with, we're able now to address the need as it is presented to us in a proper fashion. And so my question to you, Steve, was, do we have some sort of a ballpark figure? Every time we roll, there's got to be a cost associated with that. The people on the vehicle, the consumption of fuel, the wear and tear on our rigs. Is there a cost, or maybe an engine, maybe perhaps something in the industry standard or something?
Well, I'm sorry to say I'm not aware of any, and I haven't done the research on gallons per hour of diesel consumed by an idling engine or an engine that runs for an hour, but depending on, it's so variable. On any particular response, we may get 3 firefighters, community firefighters, PCFs, to respond. We may get 13, and of course that cost goes, like a slinky. It's up and down. I'm hopeful that we can again reduce by 800 hours engine operating time, and the number's so nebulous for the volunteer response. I wouldn't know where to begin. They all get paid an hour, even if it's only a 20-minute call. They get paid an hour. Well, 800 hours of minimum of PCF response would just be one person responding. So it just expands from there. I'm sorry, I can't.
It's all right. I know it'd be nice to be able to put, but we know it will be a savings, and it's a more efficient use of our limited resources, which is always
keeps us available for more mission-driven, fire department mission-driven activity.
I was thinking of that, and also the fact that where we do inspections and so forth. I know oftentimes we struggle to be able to keep up with the inspection loads, and I'm assuming that will free up more. And it's not like these guys will have to sit around and polish metal or
we threw
something.
the pinochle cards away too.
So anyway, I want to say thanks. This is really a success story. It has somewhat been portrayed somehow in the press that this is a diminution in service level, and I guess you could look at it that way, but I see it as much more efficient of government service, and so it's really a good news story. Thanks.
I've got a couple of questions, Chief. One of the questions is actually for Dan, I would just ask Dan that your association, the providers, obviously you've been involved in this process, completely on board with this philosophy. I mean, do you think that this is going to, it obviously probably won't help you, but do you see yourselves being able to meet the need and the requirement of services?
Dan Lynch from the Central California EMS Agency. Yeah, I think this is a great move. One of the things that we get concerned about regarding responses, of course, is, everybody's used to getting an ambulance and a fire engine on scene, but I guess the concern we have is that second call where there's a limited amount of resources to get to that next call. If we have a fire engine at an incident that they don't really necessarily need to be at, and we do have the cardiac arrest that was down the street from their station, but they're not there, those are the things that get me, that we're wasting resources and wasting valuable resources on those types of incidents. So I support this 100%. I think this is a good move. I think this is going to be actually a better system fit to what is happening here anywhere. I think this is a good move.
That's great to hear, and glad to know that for the constituents and the people of the county that it's not going to be a reduction of services. And then lastly, I just wanted to ask the chief if you would kind of, maybe if you could put this in sort of a real life example. That I know you've discussed other issues with me. You kind of made it in a real life situation that may help understanding of
the
some
most
of the members of the
extreme
public.
example that I know of. It didn't affect our agency, but it's typical. The Tule River Fire Department responded to the casino for a woman having cramps. Code 3, 911 call from the casino staff. Her right hand was cramping from her gripping the arm on the slot, literally gripping the arm on the slot machine and pulling the lever repeatedly. We don't get the benefit of that kind of call screening. What happens right now is the dispatcher at the sheriff's office picks up the 911 caller, and when it's a medical aid, the sheriff transfers that call to the ambulance dispatcher, and they do the call screening there. And the sheriff's dispatcher then calls our fire dispatcher, and you got a medical aid at Amethyst and Lincoln and Cutler, sick person may be the description, or you pick one. It could be anything, really. But we don't know the technical nature of what that sick person represents. Is it because they've ingested something that's a poison, or have they got the stomach flu?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Chief. Wholeheartedly support this because I think, as Mr. Lynch said, this frees us up to provide and you call them mission-driven, I'll call them real emergency calls where we need to have someone on standby ready to go. So moved by Supervisor Worley, second by Vanderpool, and the vote is?
That's a mistake on the IBS.
Unanimous, the one yellow being
We're in it.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our final presentation of the day is by Resource Management Agency, item number 31, a report on the current status of the Tulare County Williamson Act program. This will be our final presentation of the day. We'll move after this to our timed public hearing, item number 4. After this.
Good morning, Chairman Cox and Supervisors. My name is Ann Chapman, and this is Henry Dong. We are planners with Tulare County Resource Management Agency and the Countywide Planning Division. Today we're going to give you a brief report on the Williamson Act program in Tulare County. This is the first of a two-part report. Today's we'll give a general program overview, and we are going to cover the current status of the Williamson Act program here, a summary of Fresno County Williamson Act work program, and Mr. Dong will present our Tulare County existing strategies to protect agricultural lands. Part 2 of this report, which we will give in a month or so, will have to do with the fiscal impacts of the Williamson Act program. The Williamson Act program was established in 1965 by the California Land Conservation Act. It was established with the goal of preserving agricultural lands by discouraging premature conversion to urban uses. Some of the key elements of the program include that it requires agricultural or compatible uses on the land. Local governments provide tax breaks for participants. The state then reimburses the local governments. Agricultural preserves must be established, and contracts need to be established as well. The standard Williamson Act contract duration is 10 years. The contract is automatically extended unless non-renewed or canceled. There are two major contract types. One is for prime lands. The prime lands have a 10-acre minimum parcel size. The state Williamson Act code requires that the soil capability be Class 1 or Class 2, or that crops or livestock used for food or fiber are on site. Non-prime Williamson Act has a 40-acre minimum parcel size. There is no soil type requirement. Typical land uses are grazing. The Farmland Security Zone contract, sometimes called Super Williamson Act, is a third type of contract. This is a 20-year contract with a larger tax break. This was established for lands that are very close to urban areas, and the land must be prime. The duration is 20 years, and non-renewal is a 19-year period. The next several slides will present some statistics on our Tulare County Williamson Act lands. So you can see we have over 1 million acres currently enrolled in Williamson Act contracts. That's over 14,000 parcels, over 4,000 agricultural preserves, over 6,000 contracts. We currently have 191 parcels in non-renewal. We have over 500,000 acres of land designated as prime and over 500,000 designated as non-prime. At this time, we have only 10,000 plus acres of land in the Farmland Security Zone program. This map shows the Williamson Act lands in Tulare County, and my mouse, the green, the light green, is prime Williamson Act land. The gold is non-prime. You'll see striped areas. These are areas that are in non-renewal. And there are occasional areas where you see dark green. This is the Farmland Security Zone lands. This slide shows Farmland Security Zone. This is a 3-mile buffer outside of the sphere of influence. So this is land where parcels would become eligible for Farmland Security Zone. And you can see that the dark green areas, which are our existing Farmland Security Zone contracts, are all located within this zone. These striped areas are our non-renewals. As you can see, most of them are in or around major communities. This graph gives the distribution of prime and non-prime acreage by parcel size. The dark green is prime, and you can see that about 40% of the acreage is 160 acres or over, and there is a spectrum with non-prime predominantly 160 acres and over. For both prime and non-prime, there are some parcels that are too small and don't meet the state minimum. There are prime parcels under 10 and non-prime under 40. The next several slides I'm going to discuss types of substandard Williamson Act parcels. Prime less than 10, non-prime less than 40. Non-agricultural uses of the land. This program is specifically for commercial agriculture. Agricultural preserves in Tulare County must be at least 20 acres. Some of our ag preserves are below that. And we consider substandard parcels if they are located within urban development boundaries, and this is land that's slated for development within the next 20 years. Tulare County has some substandard parcels in each of these categories. This shows substandard size for prime acreage is 14% of our total parcels. Non-prime substandard in size amounts to 30% of our total parcels. There are issues with regard to fragmentation of Williamson Act land, parcels that are too small for commercial agriculture. They're used for non-agricultural purposes. We have zoning that allows additional home sites or additional land subdivision, and both of these can result in parcels that are too small for farming. Fresno County is one of many counties that is working on their Williamson Act program and reevaluating it. They currently have proposals to increase the minimum size of their non-prime Williamson Act lands from 40 to above 100 acres. Another proposal is to initiate non-renewals on all small and parcels that are also not involved in farming. They are working to eliminate creation of new home site parcels and prohibit subdivision of lands on Williamson Act contract lands. The goals are to increase minimum parcel size, hoping that that will help ensure that the lands are commercially viable. The substandard parcels and the land subdivision will also prevent further fragmentation. Now, Mr. Dong will present our current strategies for farmland protection.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Henry Dong, planner with the Resource Management Agency, and today I'll be going over the current protection strategies Tulare County utilizes in preventing the premature conversion of agricultural lands. We just heard how the Williamson Act program protects agriculture, and now we'll discuss two other control measures Tulare County utilizes. These are the agricultural zoning and the Rural Valley Lands Plan. Rural Valley Lands Plan, shown here in green, was established in 1975 with goals to protect and maintain the agricultural viability of the Rural Valley area. This is accomplished by establishing requirements for exclusive agricultural zoning with parcel sizes, minimum parcel sizes appropriate to sustain agriculture, and by implementing an evaluation system which determines the suitability of rural lands for non-agricultural uses. We'll discuss how these measures protect agriculture and some of their limitations. Agricultural zoning is implemented by a series of exclusive agricultural zones and the agricultural foothill zone, each containing a minimum parcel size ranging from 5 to 80 acres for AE zones and 160 acres for the AF zone. Each of these zones restrict the types of uses allowed: intensive and extensive agriculture, and uses that are necessary for agricultural operations. Some examples of these uses are ag service establishments such as storage, packaging, and equipment repair. The agricultural zoning does have its limitations. One limitation is the agricultural zones allow additional residences for relatives, farm workers, and employees. The second limitation is the establishment of home site parcels. One type in particular allows an additional home site parcels as long as the remaining balance of the property meets the minimum acreage requirements of the agricultural zone. The implications of these home site parcels, combined with the additional residences allowed in agricultural zones, can contribute cumulatively to the fragmentation of agricultural lands. Now I'll discuss the Rural Valley Lands Plan point system. The RVLP point system is an evaluation system that determines the suitability of rural lands for agricultural uses. It applies to zone changes and various special use permits outside of the urban development boundaries. The point system utilizes 17 factors to determine a property's suitability for non-agricultural zoning or uses. If the evaluation accumulates 17 or more points, the property must remain in agriculture. Some examples of these determining factors are whether the property is within an agricultural preserve, the surrounding land uses, and the soil suitability for agriculture. The RVLP point system does have its limitations. One limitation is in the conversion of agricultural zones to smaller agricultural zones with smaller minimum parcel sizes. The RVLP point system only applies to the conversion to agricultural zones less than 10 acres. The resulting factor could larger agricultural parcels can then be broken down to the smaller minimum parcel sizes. The second limitation of the RVLP point system is the agricultural preserve is a determining factor in the system analysis. Should the Williamson Act program be removed, the point system would need to be adjusted. So this concludes my presentation of the current protection strategies Tulare County utilizes in protecting agricultural lands.
So here we have a summary, current status of Tulare County Williamson Act program. We have over 1 million acres enrolled in the program, over 500,000 acres each in prime and non-prime contracts. We have concerns over substandard parcels, parcels that are too small, have non-agricultural uses, are located within UDBs. We have had a presentation of the Fresno County Work Program on their Williamson Act program and their strategies to reduce fragmentation of agricultural lands and eliminate substandard parcels. And Mr. Dong has just presented us with Tulare County's existing strategies to protect agricultural lands, and we've seen both strengths and limitations in these programs. That concludes our presentation.
Yes.
Just a couple of questions. I read a report in the Fresno Bee, which must have been not accurate as far as Fresno County, because they were talking about a 40-acre minimum on prime land and then a different number for non-prime, which is not exactly how you presented it to us today, so I'm not quite sure. But it looked like they were trying to expand the number of acres
Yes.
to qualify as opposed to being smaller. And I forgot my second question, but I'm sure there'll be other ones it'll come back to me after somebody else has got some questions for you.
Any other questions? And the last slide that I think you went over real briefly was when you come back for the second round of this will be the fiscal implications of the Williamson Act to the county. And that's, you flashed it up there, I don't remember hearing you say that, so I think that's something that this board has been very interested in. What are the financial implications to our property tax revenues? Sure.
It's my understanding from the presentation that basically the 5-acre parcels have been canceled under the Williamson Act unless they have petitioned to keep it in.
We don't have a mechanism to cancel. The county can initiate non-renewal.
Right.
We haven't had a policy of doing that for substandard agricultural lands yet. We're just identifying the parcels at this time. We may be thinking of home sites. Home sites are excluded from the tax break that Williams. Yeah, so we'll be discussing that more in our second.
Well, what I'm referring to is around where I live, there's a lot of 5-acre parcels that used to be larger parcels that were subdivided, and the properties were in the Williamson Act prior to the subdivision. And are they still in the Williamson Act, or have we moved to give them notice of non-renewal?
I would need to evaluate those further to give you a definitive answer. I can come back next time and present on that if you like.
Yeah, I would like us to look at that, because I received a notice from one of my irrigation districts, and it's stated that they would not supply water to 5-acre parcels or less unless they petitioned the district to supply agricultural water.
I didn't recall my questions, and actually I came up with another one. One was aggregation. I know, like up in my part of Tulare County, a lot of the properties were subdivided many years ago into colonies, and they were broken down into 10 and 20-acre parcels. Typically, these properties are farmed, but they're aggregated, so someone may have 10 or 15 of these parcels. Is that an exception to the rule in terms of Williamson Act contract limited acreages? Are people allowed to aggregate parcels that by themselves are smaller parcels but are part of a larger farming enterprise?
There are joint management agreements so that you can combine parcels as long as it's common management. I don't know if that's the case here, but that's one exception.
The other one had to do with rounding. I know there are very few true 20-acre parcels in the county because the road might be a part of that 20 acres or an irrigation canal or something of that nature. So if someone, in another example, very commonly, we just did several today, where you create a home site. So if you had a 20-acre parcel and you carved out an acre and a half, do we still consider that a 20, or is that now something less than? I mean, what is the...
Currently, we're considering it at 20, and the question is whether we would want to change our policies so you don't have those smaller parcels. We do have a lot of those where it's a 10-acre minimum for prime, but then you carve out the home site, so it's less than 10 acres, or non-prime that's less than 40.
So if a person had a 10-acre parcel and it was a Williamson Act, and they create a home site, do we file a notice of non-renewal currently?
No, we haven't begun filing non-renewals on substandard size yet. That would be something, we may take direction from you later on.
Thanks.
Well, if I can, as I look at the two pie charts you did of the prime, we have 14%, 1,400 parcels out of compliance, and in the non-prime, 780 parcels, 30% that are substandard. And I see what Supervisor Worthley's getting to. If you have a 19.97 acres, is that really 20 acres, or is it, or is it considered substandard? I think as you look at this, we might come up with a way to, or maybe a small variance if the road or ditch or those types of things do make it a true 20 acre, that we might consider that a 20 acre, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the financial implication is, and this might all be moot if the state ends a program here in the next year or two.
They can't end the program. They can
end the subvention. They can end
the program
subvention.
is a contract.
Well, if they end the subvention, I think this
protection.
board would have its back against the wall. Any other questions?
Well, I think it's clear from Supervisor Worthley and Supervisor Cox that we would like to look into this deeper.
Right.
And come back with a report with numbers, financial numbers also. I think it's very important what Supervisor Worthley brought up is that a lot of us out there that are farming do have these acres that are less than 10 that we farm, but we combine our farming operation it's just part of our farming operation. But if you have a standalone 10 acre or a less than 10 acre parcel, you have a very difficult time finding a commercial packer to come in and pick your fruit. But there are those people out there that do raise crops on 5 acre parcels, but there are very few of them. And I think even if they raise their crops on those small parcels, I believe they still should have that acreage considered in the Williamson Act.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, this is an action item to receive the report. I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
By Ennis.
I'll second.
Second by Vanderpool. Cast your votes. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We look forward to the second piece of this. Okay, we'll now move to our timed items. The next item we'll address is item number 4, a public hearing request by a Resource Management Agency.
Morning, Chairman Cox and Supervisors. Maureen Hopkins with RMA Planning Division. This is a continued public hearing at the request of the City of Visalia from March 10th, 2009, for a change of zone from AE 40 to AE 20. on 187.94 acres. The site is located on the east side of Highway 99 and the south side of Avenue 272, at the intersection of Road 92, which is also Shirk Road, south of Visalia. The site is located within the urban area boundary of Visalia. The urban area boundary policy 6-1 states that the county and each city shall continue to determine the appropriate zoning for unincorporated areas within urban area boundaries. The parcels highlighted in yellow are all less than 20 acres and are located within a half-a-mile radius of this project site. The purple boundary depicts the zoning within a half-a-mile radius of the site. As you can see, the majority of the parcels are zoned AE 40. Note the parcels up to the upper right, they're zoned AE 20, and they'll be discussed in the next slide. On March 16th, the City of Visalia recommended to their City Council that they request the Board of Supervisors deny the proposed zone change. They provided 5 items as specific evidence to support their recommendation. One item is that the City Council of Visalia has initiated the process to update their general plan. The project should not be allowed to reduce, and they note, the project should not be allowed to reduce the agricultural viability through parcelization until its near-term agricultural and long-term urban development potentials can be analyzed in the context of the city's development vision for the next 20 to 50 years. Furthermore, city staff sent a map depicting 20-acre parcels that are located just north of the site and have been turned into ranchettes. They are highlighted in red, as discussed in the previous slide, to provide a perspective of location to the project site. On March 20th, 2009, the mayor of Visalia sent a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that they deny the zone change. They mention a pattern of 20-acre ranchettes developments on unincorporated land southwest of Visalia within their urban area boundary. The City of Visalia is concerned about long-term community planning and potential for growth conflicts with this type of land use. On March 30th, a letter was received from the Tulare County Farm Bureau and forwarded to your board. The Farm Bureau believes that the zone change would be in conflict with 8 of their policies. One such policy is Tulare County Farm Bureau supports local planning that accommodates orderly, logical, contiguous patterns of urban development in order to prevent premature and unnecessary conversions of productive agricultural lands to non-agricultural uses. And subject to any questions you may have, that concludes my staff's presentations.
Any questions, staff?
I have a question.
Yes.
What exactly was the concerns of the city of Visalia?
The City of Visalia, they're doing their update, and they went back to the staff report, and basically there was spot zoning. That basically the whole area is zoned AE 40, and then we're going to be putting in AE 20. And as they're trying to, look towards the future, they haven't determined, what exactly is going to happen yet. And basically multiple parcelizations make it harder when they're trying to prepare for eventual urban development or whatever they propose.
Okay, well, it seems to me that if you divided this property into more owners, that it would be, like they mentioned, harder for them to urbanize.
Yes.
Is that the gist of their?
Well, it would be harder for them to, within their urban area boundary, to kind of plan for something else. So they want to keep it in large urban or agricultural development.
Well, if I was a developer and I had 5 family members living on that property that all had 20-acre parcels, it'd be very difficult to get all 5 of them to agree to say, well, we're going to make this an office building or a shopping center or a residential development.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what the mayor was stating, and that's there, as more people are creating ranchettes, and that's their concern too, is they're seeing this type of growth.
But on the other side of the coin is that there's the likelihood of keeping that in agriculture would be enhanced if you divide it into 20 acres.
Okay, actually, the city representative, I can defer the questions from the city.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we
Yeah,
go,
there is a representative of the city of Visalia here that can answer those questions directly for Visalia. Do we have other questions of our staff?
I need to make a disclosure at this time, Mr. Chairman. Since our last meeting, I have met with Dr. Molly, who wanted to show me a map of other properties, sizes, and dimensions that were not given to us at the last meeting. That was the purpose of our meeting. He did that, and of course, I will be making my decision on the basis of the information presented to us previously. And
Have those been provided for the whole board for today, or?
I believe they have, because we have an expanded map. Today, it appears to be an expanded map was provided in terms of the acreages outside, beyond the parcel itself.
Okay. Supervisor Van.
And I have a comment and also need to make a disclosure as well. I have spoken with the applicant on the phone and just kind of gave him the guidance as to who we needed to talk to in order to get some questions answered. So, but I too will be making my decision based on the items that are presented here before the board today. The comment that I wanted to make was just that you brought up that in your presentation you had a screen that showed the zoning around the project sites, and around that area, I don't think that there can really be a complaint that everything around the area is zoned AE40, so we shouldn't be doing this, because I think it's pretty clear just by that screen that you showed up with the little yellow highlights, and just by looking at that it's not everything is AE40.
No, not everything is. It's on the southern portion. I believe it's zone C2. And
Bill Tagus Ranch.
oh, sure. Oops. Okay, so that is, yeah, so there's the bottom portion, zone
But
C.
you had one that had yellow highlights all throughout, just indicating the different zone parcel sizes. There you go.
Here are
Slide
the parcels
before
that are
this
less than,
Yeah, no, that's just,
or 20 acres and less.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Well, if I can, I thought that's what this board was trying to do, is to discontinue creating these little pieces in AE40s or 80s zones to keep them in viable ag production. That's where I thought we were going, but I'm hearing maybe something different today. Before disclosure, Dr. Malley did call me, and I did not talk with him, told him it wouldn't be appropriately to meet with him while we were considering his matter. So are there any other questions for staff?
Well, I needed to say that he called me also, and I talked to him briefly, and I did not agree to meet with him. So.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, this is a public hearing. Those wishing to address the board on this matter, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Ed Canvasser with California Planning and Engineering, 724 North Ben Maddox here in Visalia. I just wanted to introduce myself. I hadn't introduced myself in the prior hearing. Most of the facts are already out on the table. Dr. Malley has made a considerable efforts since we were last here to get his message across of what his intentions are, and really try to build a case of other privileges to the north of him that really that's what he's after. I think he has shown his ability to farm his property and his intentions to continue to farm his property. He has spent a considerable amount of his time farming, and he's not going to get rid of this operation. That is his intentions. Dr. Malley is going to come up and present some of his information, but primarily what I wanted to do was indicate that in all the years that I've been doing this, 22 years now, a 20-acre parcel really doesn't pose an issue when you're trying to urbanize it. It does create, it surely is easier to design on a larger parcel, but 20 acres will present no problem with designing a shopping center, designing residential lots, whether they be RA zone or however this is going to play out in that area. And that's really all I have to say. We look at 5 acre, we look at 5 acre parcels. We look at 2 acre parcels. We've designed our way out of many irregular shaped parcels, and it's not an issue.
Sharon, just a comment, because there is a creek that runs through this property, and there is an access issue, and so I understand why it was designed to be that way it is, but they are irregularly shaped parcels. Normally when we think of parcels in the valley, we think of rectangular shaped pieces, and these are not. So it does strike me that down the road, if this gets subdivided, that there will be some issues to deal with here, because these are not north, south, east, west lines. They're diagonals that run along the 99 and then continue on across and follow the creek contours. And so this is not a traditional rectangular shaped piece of 20 acres, which I'm accustomed to seeing through most of the valley. Just to make a little bit of response to what you're saying.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but our job when anybody comes to us to design and do the best we can, irregular shape or angled parcel lines do not create an issue. We've got plenty of examples of that, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board during this public hearing?
Good morning, Chairman Cox and members of the board. I'm here to, I did speak at the last hearing, and my attempt here to meet with members of the board and the City of Visalia, the Farm Bureau, was to go ahead and, present my side of why I am trying to do what I'm trying to do. And I didn't identify myself. I did the last time. Dr. Malley. I reside at 9201 Avenue 272, which is the 4-acre home site which they show as a financing parcel. I live on the property, and so I'm representing my family. My intentions, as I said at the last meeting, is purely to pass on these parcels as a gifting process within the context of my trust planning, because the members of my family have grown since the time when I purchased this piece of property, and having learned of conflicts which arise within members of families when the senior member passes on, I didn't want to see something like this happening, and so that's why I sought to go ahead and do this. And I was fully aware when I wanted to initiate this that there are existing 20-acre parcels that I was with, and I felt the confines of my right to do that, because I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I see these parcels half a mile north of me. I see these parcels, quarter mile south of me. I see them east of me. And so I figured that, that's what I do. And that's how I initiated and retained the services of California Planning to go ahead and do this. There are some that, and in the meantime, to answer one of the questions that was just raised, the parcels being irregularly planned that way is this, for one thing, because there's a Packwood Creek flows through the property. I own the property north of Packwood Creek as well as the property south of Packwood Creek all the way to Avenue 264. And the intentions of doing it facing Avenue 272 and the parcels all running southwards from Avenue 272 was to make it easy and viable to go ahead and have access to any of these parcels from an approach standpoint. And also for clarification purposes which have not been addressed by the RMA here in their report, some of the maps which they presented on the last 2 pages are actually in error, which they have subsequently now expanded to enlarge it. I have a map down here exactly outside my doorway on Avenue 272, that parcel that is presented as a 40-acre parcel. It is incorrect. The one that's in yellow, there is a small housing parcel of 3.88 acres, which is out of that. That's not a 40-acre parcel, that's a 20-acre parcel and a 25-acre parcel. Secondly, on page 2 of the report, whereby they say that there is open ground, that is incorrect. There is no open ground on page 2, the second last paragraph. In addition to an open field, the parcel is used for residential zoning for financing parcel. When this report was prepared, perhaps what they reviewed out there was open ground. I used to have 20 acres of table grapes down there, which I dozed out, and since then I have planted them into 10 acres of Meyer lemons and into 10 acres of cherries. Why I bring this up is this, that I purchased this property in 1995. I'm a retired disabled dentist. I've had back surgeries in the year 2000, and since then I've not been able to practice dentistry. I'm a full-time farmer, so don't be misled by the name Dr. Malley. He's an investor, quote, property owner. I actively farm in Tulare County. I have lots of other pieces of property. I enjoy this, and to carry on further, perhaps my kids, as they grew up, they didn't like their summer vacation, because the summer vacation was spent supervising table picking crews, walnut crews, and orange crews. But I guess it wasn't too bad, because my son has gone out and purchased another 160 acres of pistachios. So, one thing I want to allay the apprehensions here would be this. Since the time I bought these pieces of property on Tagus, there is not a single crop that is there which was there when I purchased it. There is an enormous amount of outlay of money that I've put into these pieces of property, in development cost, in changing irrigation cost in there. There used to be flood irrigation. I made it into drip irrigation for conservation purposes and to minimize the amount of dust which would be to the surrounding freeway area. I've got all of them planted into active permanent crops, which are going to be, they're all new plantings and which are going to be productive for the next 20 to 30 years. I'm 63 years old right now. I hope to be able to farm it actively, if my health allows me, for the next 15, 20 years. And if the city of Visalia has any apprehensions about ranchettes being created, I can assure them that my intention is not there to go ahead and start putting 2 houses on every 20-acre parcel. I don't want to do that. I'm retired from dentistry. I love farming. And I can assure them that for the next 15 years, or even longer if I'm able to, but I don't think I'm going to fall apart in 15 years. So I will continue to farm that. I plan to keep it in farming. And that is my sole intention. It is actually to pass it on and gift it. I met with the members of the board to try to explain this, to show them the map and what I'm trying to achieve here. And I also met with the Farm Bureau and, again, told them about the same thing. I met with the city members of Visalia also. And, all I can say is this, that I hope I'm able to convince you folks that what I'm trying to create here is to prevent disputes within my family, to keep it a viable farming agricultural property, which is, the Farm Bureau likes to have the properties stay in farming, to hand it over to my heirs so that they don't have to squabble and fight over it when I'm dead and gone. Even in the gifting process, they do not have the right to sell these properties until I am dead and my wife is dead. The kids get gifted these properties, but they don't have the rights to sell these properties until and unless we have the say-so, and we tell them that they can do it. And that isn't going to come from me and my wife, because I enjoy far too much what I have to do. And I don't have dentistry to fall back on, I farm. So that's my presentation, and hope you folks,
Dr. Ma, I do have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to assume that what I read in the newspaper is correct, because it rarely is. I remember reading that you were questioned by the Visalia City Council if you would consider putting this into an ag preserve, and per the paper, your answer was no. If that's correct, can you tell me why?
Yes, sir. You're right, I did. They wanted me to put the property into an ag preserve in perpetuity, forever, to lose my rights, to the property and put it into an ag preserve and to forget about it. I countered that by telling that I cannot dictate that to my children and put this on them, because everyone knows, the members board sitting down here, that we do not know what is going to happen in the next 20 years, with the present economic climate. And the city of Visalia is doing its urban boundary. In 20 years, there could be urbanization out there. And I cannot deny my heirs. The farmer is only rich when he dies or when his land sells. During the farming process, he is not a rich man. And so I cannot deny my grandchildren from that, but I did tell them that, that I am willing, if they want me to give in any kind of a letter form, that as long as, I'm capable, which I don't foresee any problems, because I plan to farm it for the next 15, 20 years. I've got to realize that return into all these citrus that I've just planted, which are 5 years old, cherries which are 8 years old, grapes which are 2 to 9 years old grapes, and I just developed another 20 acres. So, that's the reason why I said I do not want to leave this in perpetuity. But if they want me to sign any kind of documentation to the effect that for the next 10, 15 years I'm going to keep it as that, I'm more than willing to do it. I'm more than willing to say there will be no other densities other than if my sons, both my boys, live with me. If they want to build a home down there, they're going to build it next to the home site. They are too smart to go out and build further away from them, because I've put the infrastructure for utilities and gas lines. So that's what it is.
Great, thank you. Chairman? Supervisor Sheila, then Vanderpool.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to deed, once your subdivision map is final, gift deed these different parcels to the different members of your family?
Yes, sir. They actually, within the context of these 40-acre parcels, which they are right now, they are being gifted a portion of this property every year through the gift taxing purposes.
Right.
But when I create these 20-acre parcels, then I can say that, within this parcel, when it gets divided, that through the gifting process, I can tell my attorney parcel A is to go to Jesse Malley, parcel B to Joe, parcel C to, my grandson,
But that's your
my granddaughter.
intention, is once you have your subdivision map,
That's right.
you can designate to the individuals their
Yes, sir.
parcel.
Yes, through the gifting process, designating the individual parcels to them.
And Dr. Malley, my question for you is that I know that the city of Visalia wants you to enter into an ag preserve into perpetuity, or if you would do that, they'd be willing to support it. And I know that you said you'd be willing to do that for 10, 15 years. What about for your remaining life, which is what you have said for here for the purposes of this? So as long as you're alive, it will stay in agriculture.
I really wouldn't have a problem with that. The only issue is this, that I suffer from very severe spinal stenosis.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school to become a dentist. The day I had my first operation in the year 2000 at USC, I was told that I'm going to be having a bunch of surgeries and that I will never be able to go back to practicing. I had my second surgery in the year 05. And I am functioning right now with only about 30% of my disc at lumbar 5 and S1. And right now, after that 05, because of my activity on the range, I am beginning to develop numbness in my left foot, my toes. I do not know, how long I can continue to, and I'm not one of the guys who drives in a pickup. I can't farm from a pickup. I've got to walk onto the range. So I can't put a time limit that, it could be 20 years, 15 years, and that for as long as I'm alive. Because if I cannot get out of the house to do this, I was told that if I continue with very robust activity, I could require subsequent surgeries and even get paralyzed from the waist down.
And the only reason I mentioned that was just because that seemed to me to be the happy medium between the 10, 15 years that you had mentioned and then the perpetuity that the city of Visalia had mentioned. It seemed like that would fall somewhere in between. But that's the only reason I mentioned that. So.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Melly. Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time?
Members of the board, I'm Mike Olmos. I'm representing the city of Visalia. You have a letter from Mayor Gamboa that was sent to you last week or week before, and so you see the issues that the city of Visalia has raised. Can I have the map up that shows the parcels, please? While that's coming up, the primary reasons that the city is opposing this is, one, we started the process to update our general plan. That we just had the first meeting. This will be a multi-year process. The board is going through that now. You're aware of the time that's necessary to work through that large of a program. And so from the city's standpoint, we don't know what's going to happen here. And this kind of decision, we believe, will create a potential obstacle to the city in trying to implement whatever future plan is put in place. But we won't know that until the plan is done. As we look at development around the community, we see a number of issues that we're going to be facing. The city of Visalia is looking at the city of Tulare going to the south, Exeter and Farmersville to the east. We have the St. Johns River to the north, and issues that you've already talked about this morning about the levees, and we also, at this point, don't know whether the city will be jumping north of the St. Johns River. We look at future development. And as the city looks at the confines that we have to work with, development to the south and the southwest may be an area where the city goes. And that being the case, it's our concern that the area be left in viable agriculture until the city decides and can plan for the area, and then at that point to see what would be the best and long-term land use for this particular site. The aerial photo, if we could bring that up, is the one that's of concern, and that shows the parcels on the to the north there. And one of the concerns that we've seen happen is this gradual transition of these properties to ranchette development. Those three parcels that are bordered in red are cases that are pretty significant to us from the standpoint that when those 20s got developed, we've seen the development of large homes in the middle of those sites, large home sites around those homes, and then the properties being developed in a way that we believe is going to create some issues if this area is developed in the future to higher density development. The location of those homes and those improvements on those parcels is going to be an issue as we try to develop those to higher density. We're faced with AB 32, with SB 375, with the blueprint, with a whole lot of stuff coming down, and we know that we're going to have to look at high density development of the cities as we look towards the future in terms of meeting the needs of growth in the county. And when we see this kind of development, we see potential obstacles to meeting that density, and it's of concern to us that how the city will grow, meet those obligations, and do so in a way that meets the mandates of the state of California. We see where you see the Shirk Street designation, the parcel just to the west of that. You see a home site apparently being developed there. The property to the west of that red border, you see a potential, looks like a home site being prepared there. The property on the east side of Shirk has a home site as well that seems to take up, I don't know, it looks like maybe about a quarter of that property. So as we see these, we worry that this kind of development is going to continue to be a pattern in Southwest Visalia. It's going to create concerns to us as we try to plan for the area. And even if we do apply a higher density development in that area, how we're going to be able to achieve those densities given the development pattern that we see emerging. I have met with Dr. Mully. I understand his situation. We had a long conversation, I think it was last week, and I appreciate the fact that he has made a very strong effort to farm in that area, and he continues. I believe that he is sincere in that he is a farmer, and he's trying to do what's best for him. He tells me he has 2 sons, as I recall correctly from the conversation. I think he has 2 sons, and he has very young grandchildren. His sons are starting families of their own now. What I suggested to him is to wait, that in our minds this development is premature, that when the general plan is completed, there may be other opportunities out there that his sons would be able to realize over the long term. But at this point, to make this kind of decision to divide the property, the city of Visalia believes that's a long-term commitment to 20-acre development out there, and that kind of parcelization, despite the good intentions of Dr. Mully, we can't guarantee what will happen with his family. We don't know what, as he said, he's got other issues he's dealing with as well. And what this kind of parcelization does is create the potential for the development that you see in that red border to occur. And so it's a request of the city that the zone change not be approved, that the area stay in AE40, consistent with the zoning around it, allow our plan to be done, and then and I encourage Dr. Mully to engage in that process, to come to the meetings. He has significant interests out there. He needs to participate in the planning process for the city. So with that, I'll conclude, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Questions? No. Thank you, Mr. Almos. Would anyone else like to comment? Dr. Mully, you get another shot at the mic.
If I may, please, thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to address about the issues of the ranchettes, which was brought up just now, which is just north of me. I think that is something which everybody has failed to address in that. And I don't think that is a site for heavy density because it is in the flight path of the Visalia airport. So that where those 20-acre ranchettes are out there, there are planes going to be flying over that, and there can never be high density in that area. I just wanted to, address that.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Anyone else from the audience like to speak? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to our board. This is set for a closed session. Board, if you feel you need to go there. I don't know that I feel that way. Okay, any comments before we entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I understand what the doctor's trying to do, because I think all of us farmers are at a certain age realize that we have some inheritance issues that are coming up. And personally, we have a piece of property that might go to the grandkids, but what happens when you put 6 grandkids on a piece of property? The property most times becomes unsaleable because you can't get 6 people to agree on a price or willing to convey that property. Mr. Almos brought up about SB 375 and AB 32 is really government interference, in my opinion, over public property rights, and private property rights. When we start legislating or putting ordinances in that forget about the individual property, the private property rights of people, because we have government issues that we want to minimize our problems with SB 375 or AB 32, I think that's the wrong direction of government. And I do believe in personal property rights, and I understand Dr. Molly's position, and I therefore support the subdivision of this property.
And I have a comment that I would like to make. I agree with Supervisor Ishida, and I also think that in the interest of agriculture over a long period of time, the city has mentioned that it makes it an easier process for them to annex when these properties are in bigger and easier to plan for the long term when these properties are bigger. And so we have seen in several crops, whether it's tree fruit or tree nuts, whatever it may be, that 20-acre parcels can be viable agriculture. And so for agricultural viability over a long period of time, to me, this is probably a better shot at maintaining agriculture over a longer period of time on these properties than if we were to leave them as currently zoned. So I too support the subdivision of these properties to 20-acre parcels.
We're going to have a split vote, I think, on this board for a change. It doesn't happen too terribly often, but my comments are these. First, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that Dr. Molly is exactly as he has portrayed himself. He's a farmer. He intends to farm this property for the rest of his life, and if he could roll from the grave, he probably would make sure it was farmed by his children for the rest of their lives. The concern that I think we have to have as county supervisors is not looking at the shorter term, which is lives and being here, but the longer term, and that is what are we looking at long term in terms of viability of agriculture. When these properties are divided into smaller parcels, there is a potential impact on future viability of farming. I was interesting that the term was used 20-acre ranchettes, and it demonstrates how things change over time. Because when I was a kid, a ranchette was probably more like 2.5 acres. I remember Fresno County used to allow for 2.5-acre parcels. You could take property and break it up into those small 2.5-acre parcels. In Tulare County, we were much more progressive. It was 5-acre parcels. They had to be 5 acres. That was considered a ranchette. But as you look at those photographs that were taken in South Visalia now, where people literally buy 20-acre parcels as a home site, you can tell farming may be there. It may be incidental, but it is in fact only incidental. You can tell because if you're really concerned about production agriculture, you don't go out in the middle of a field and create this beautiful, huge home with a huge footprint and then try to farm around it. Nobody farms that way that's really interested in farming. They tend to put them up towards the front and a corner off to the side so they can maximize the amount of property that's there for agriculture. So the primary purpose of those sites is really for a home site. So the whole concept of what is a ranchette has changed in my lifetime. I never thought I would see 20 acres being thought of as a ranchette, but that is true, and I see it in my district and other places as well. So I'm going to not support this because, again, it has nothing to do with the integrity of the doctor and his intentions. I believe they're entirely honorable. I understand what he's trying to do. I just think that ultimately it does have an impact on the viability of agriculture in Tulare County. To make a comment that was brought up by Mr. Vanderpool about the smaller parcels around them, that's true all throughout the county. I mean, you could look at throughout the county and you'll see it zoned AE20 or AE10 or AE40, and there'll be lots of exceptions because many of these parcels were created long before we ever had the zoning laws that we now have in place. Granted, if there's a huge bunch of them, we have to question whether or not our zoning is accurate. But in this case, we do have a significant number of 40-acre parcels here. This is actually a much larger parcel. And this parcel could be divided into 240s right now, or 440s rather, and create and do some of the things that the doctor's trying to do in terms from a standpoint of his own estate. But again, my take on this strictly is to long-term agricultural viability. That's the basis for my decision. It has nothing to do with the integrity of the doctor, what he wants to do, and I support what he's trying to do for his family. But I think our goal is to look at long-term ag viability and the zoning that we have. So that's my position.
Supervisor, yes, and I would, just while he's inching up, I will agree with Supervisor Worthley in this. I think it's a position the board's taken for a while.
Well, I think you can take these 20-acre parcels and they can be viable. I know we have, my mother-in-law has a 20-acre parcel just west of Strathmore, and we run a small cattle operation on there. and there are houses on there, but we do utilize most of that property for cattle and permanent pasture and such as that. And I think that these ranchettes, a lot of them do that. They build that house in the center, and then they put their pasture all the way around the house. I've seen quite a few of them out there on my way back and forth to work. So I do believe that you can take a 20-acre parcel and still make it viable for some agriculture. And I would have to agree with Supervisor Ishida and Supervisor Vanderpool on this issue.
I move that we approve the. Did you close the public hearing?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Support the staff recommendation.
Yeah, support staff recommendation to allow a 20.
And I'll second that.
Moved by Ishida, seconded by Vanderpool. Please cast your votes. We have a 3-2 decision. Ishida, Vanderpool, Innes voting in favor, Cox and Worthley voting against. So motion does carry to support staff recommendation. We will now move to our next public hearing, which is item number 5, a request from the Resource Management Agency in regard to an FTA grant funding.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is John Brew with the Resource Management Agency. Item number 5 is a request that your board conduct a public hearing on obtaining Federal Transit Administration Section 5311 grant funding for 6 CNG buses and 18 fare boxes for a transit fleet. RMA is requesting funds through 2 grant applications for these transit capital assets. The first grant application for $180,000 is a request for 1 CNG bus. And the economic stimulus funds designated for transit program allows the county to apply for a second grant in amount just under $792,000 to purchase 5 CNG buses and 18 fare boxes. This is a shovel-ready project which we can have this funding ready and have funding obligated by the state within 180 days. Replacing old diesel buses with CNG buses will improve the air quality, upgrade our transit fleet, and meet the goal of the transit fleet rules from the Air Resource Board. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to address the board on this item, please step forward with your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman, and this is a great project and a way to take advantage of funds that are made available to us to upgrade our system.
Motion by Supervisor
Second.
Worthley, second by Supervisor Innes. Please cast your votes. And unanimous. Good luck to you, Mr. Brew. Let's hope we get the money. Is there anybody on the board requiring a 5-minute break before we? Okay, we're going to take a very short break, a rest break. So if you need to use the facilities, please go down. We'll return in 5 to 7 minutes to hear public hearing item number 6. If it was huge enough to split down the middle, he could just come and say, split it. I think it would have been done. This is a new administrator. Both those down the middle. Yeah.
Bottom of that's almost 40 acres.
Being a man true to my word, we're back in 7 minutes, and we will now Here, item number 6, which is a request from Resource Management Agency to deny appeal filed by a Mr. Bill Pinzar. Good morning again.
Chairman Cox and Supervisors, I'm Ann Chapman of Tulare County RMA Countywide Planning. I have some handouts here. We're asking today that you hold a public hearing and deny the appeal filed by Bill Pensar, uphold Planning Commission's decisions set forth in Resolutions 8405 and 8406 for the EIR certification and permit approval of the Lemon Cove Granite Surface Mining Permit and Reclamation Plan, number PMR 03001. Okay. Shows the location of the project. It's about a mile east of the community of Lemon Cove. Here's the project site. This was an existing mine, Avenue 328, and this is the community of Lemon Cove. The zoning for this site is planned development, foothill mobile home, and mining isn't allowed use with use permit. This shows residences within a half-mile radius of the mine site. We will hear more about these neighbors later. Mr. Pensar lives further outside the area over here. The Lemon Cove Granite Mine has been in existence for many decades. Their most recent permit was a 1987 permit, and they have been mining decomposed granite and hard rock. The hard rock mining requires some blasting and crushing. They have, the permit as we have approved it allows excavation, allows an expansion of their excavation acreage from 22 to 27.9 acres on a 34-acre site, but most of the other permit conditions are the same. They have the same production limits, the same truck trip limits. We have tightened up mitigation measures in a number of categories, most notably in noise. This shows a mine site mining plan. This is the plant entrance. This is where the portable crusher and screener is currently located. It will be moving eastward during the project. This is the expansion area, and this will be the area that's contoured for the final slope. Again, this aerial shows the portable crusher screener. It shows a sound berm on the south side, and this is the area that will be excavated. I have several photographs here. This shows the site entrance from 328. There is a citrus orchard immediately adjacent. This is a large stockpile. This shows the crushing and screening equipment. This shows the sound berm on the south-hand side, and this shows the berm from the back side outside of the mine site. Just to give you some brief permit history on this project, it was somewhat complicated. In 1987, Mr. Cairns was granted permit PMR 8505. This allowed mining of decomposed granite for 22 acres of the 34-acre site. In July of 2002, he also received a one-year permit to operate a rock crusher on the site, and so at that time he started hard rock mining. It had some related blasting. Both permits expired, one in 2002 and one in 2003. In 2004, the Planning Commission, as an enforcement action, approved the first of many 6-month extensions, allowing the operator to continue mining under the conditions established in those two permits while he worked on an environmental impact report for his current permit. In 2003, Mr. Cairns filed his application, PMR 03001. In 2007, a draft environmental impact report was available to the public, and 2 Planning Commission hearings were held, November 2007 and January 2008. I would note that the project as described in the draft environmental impact report was larger than the project as we have approved it finally. Initially, he was asking for 4 times as many truck trips. It would have also required expanding Avenue 328 and the intersection of 198 and 328. After the 2 public hearings, the applicant determined that he would downscale the project. And we had an additional public hearing in April of 2008. The downscaled project, which we'll go into in a bit more detail, but it is very similar to his previous permit conditions. In November of 2008, the final EIR was released. It was based on the downscaled project. The final 2 public hearings addressed the environmental impact report, and on December 3rd, the project was approved by the Planning Commission, the EIR was certified, a statement of overriding consideration was adopted, and conditions of approval and mitigation monitoring plan. The environmental impacts that were addressed in the EIR included air quality, traffic, noise, cultural resources, and others. For the purpose of the remaining of my talk, I'm going to concentrate on noise, since that was the basis of the appeal by Mr. Pensar. There were 2 noise studies done in 2003 and 2006. Both of these studies showed that the noise levels were consistent with our current county policies on noise, and this is the policy that would apply. This sets a 60 decibel LDN limit. LDN is a 24-hour day-night average. Noise measurement locations, and these were for the 2006 study, are at or near the nearest residence. This was the Lindner House and the site of the study, Mr. Cairns' residence and the site of the noise monitoring. And then there was a point that's about halfway between the Jones residence and the Zappalek residence. The permit as it was approved had a number of mitigation measures for noise and vibrations. These included a physical noise barrier on the south side, signage to reduce truck noise on Avenue 328, somewhat reduced operating hours, maximum noise levels set for adjacent properties, and the noise levels we were required were tighter than our county policy allows. We had limitations on blasting when it could occur, and we have provisions for a noise consultant. Should there be complaints about the project, a noise consultant will be brought in to monitor noise levels, and if those noise levels exceed the agreed upon level, Mr. Cairns would need to do additional mitigation measures. I'm going to go through just a few of the noise mitigation measures. The main point here is that his initial operating hours, both for trucking and for crushing, were 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, and that was year-round. Now Mr. Cairns has seasonal requirements, and his hours of operation are somewhat reduced. Where you see the numbers in yellow, for example, he can only start crushing at 7 a.m. here, or between 8 and 5 on Saturday. And here also the crushing starts at 7 and runs from 8 to 6 on Saturday. So this represents somewhat shorter operating hours. Another mitigation measure was the berm along the south-hand side. Probably the key noise mitigation measure that we added. This was the December 3rd hearing, and there was a great deal of discussion. Consultant Bill Thiessen of Brown and Button presented, and he had been Mr. Cairns' noise consultant, but he was discussing with us our noise standards for the county, the 24-hour average that we were using and how that's outdated. And he recommended that we use standards that are tighter, similar to Kern County or Fresno County. And so those are based on hourly averages rather than 24-hour averages. We checked with county council, and we could in fact make conditions of approval that were tighter than our county noise policy sets. And we tried to balance concerns of the neighbors who were concerned about noise with the concerns of the operator who needed to be able to function. So the 55 decibels LEQ was what we finally came up with here. And I've already mentioned that we have the other provisions so that should noise levels exceed this, we have a consultant that can measure the actual noise, and we could do additional mitigation measures at that time. Thank you. That ends my presentation.
Any questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody desiring to speak to this matter, please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Bob Brown. I'm president of Brown Bunton Associates. We're consultants in acoustics located at 1148 North Chenoweth here in Visalia. We also have offices in Sacramento. We did the 2003 study for Mr. Cairns and have looked at both studies, the one that we did, of course, and the one that was done in 2006. Basically, they showed the same results. The noise monitoring sites that we picked were similar to each other, the only difference being that the 2003 study focused on residences, or actually places where people are located. The study that was done in 2006 focused on property lines, so that was a primary difference. As Ms. Chapman has mentioned, I thought she, by the way, did a great job on staff report in summarizing this very complicated project, because it is pretty complicated. As she has mentioned, the County Planning Commission decided to impose a stricter noise standard than what is in the county's existing noise element of the general plan. And I certainly agree that that may be appropriate in this case, because the LDN standard is typically for transportation noise sources that are more or less continuous over time, whereas the standard that is being imposed in this condition or in this situation is based on how loud it is when it's actually occurring. So I believe that is more appropriate. And really, the studies that were done by ourselves and by J.C. Brennan and Associates both showed that the operation does not exceed the more stringent standard that's being applied in this case. And I think that's all I really need to say at this point. I'd be glad to answer any questions and to get as technical as you wish at this point. Thank you.
Questions? Well, thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is David Mathias. I'm counsel for Lemon Cove Granite. My address is 225 West Oak Avenue, Visalia, California. We're here just briefly in support of the RMA's request to deny the appeal of Mr. Pensar. We would also like to compliment Ms. Chapman and the RMA of their preparation of the staff report and the work they've done on this project. We believe the report's thorough, complete, and accurate. As you can tell by the dates of the noise reports, they have been taken over a 6-year period between 2003 and 2009. At all levels, the noise has been evaluated. It's within acceptable limits and found to be below required limits. I think most importantly, and one thing that we would like to emphasize, is there is a procedure that's been approved by the RMA if there is noise over the acceptable limits and over the guidelines. Certainly, if Mr. Pensar finds the noise to be surpass those limits, he has a mechanism in which to find remedy with that process. We'd like to thank you for your consideration and certainly have any questions asked. This is Mr. Cairns, Tom Cairns, who is the owner of Lemon Cove Granite, and either one of us can certainly answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Bill Pensar, 32811, Road 244, Lemon Cove. And I guess this is what makes a horse race. Before I start, I do sit on a board with Supervisor Ishida. I think, to the best of my knowledge, we've never discussed this matter. We're in full disclosure. Thank you for hearing this. I apologize for taking your time for what must seem like a minor matter given the weighty issues of budgets, water, and economy. But this is a serious concern in our community. Despite resolution is a high calling. It is now, nor has it ever been our intention to shutter Lemon Cove Granite. They produce a good and needed product, the mother's milk of construction. Lemon Cove Granite has operated throughout the years involved in this whole permitting process and is no doubt operating today. We do have a few concerns, however, that with more planning, this project could be made a better fit for the community. Our primary concern is the failure to consider sound attenuation structures or barriers to the west. Although they were often brought up by many during scoping, draft EIR, final EIR, berms hearings, berms were prescribed at Kauai South, are utilized at Lone Star Quarry. We do not believe they were adequately addressed or considered in the CEQA process for this project. CEQA requires evidence and analysis to support conclusions. Berms were suggested by several communities and even one sound expert during the process, almost 4 years. But were ignored, save for one response given, that the opportunity for berms was limited due to space constraints. Space constraints. Subsequently, the applicant has stated that the operation will be moving east 250 feet. You heard that here today, by the way. In the near future, which would seem to provide the requisite space. We can wait for berms if they are prescribed. In an effort to get planning to consider berms, it was pointed out on 11/19/08 that in the final environmental impact report, mitigation measure 3.10.9, which established the standard of 70 decibels max at the property line, was not only not attainable, but probably already exceeded using data from the same report. The response was to scrap that mitigation rather than mitigate the noise. The sound was considered in 2 studies, 2003, 2006. Both of these studies utilized averaging techniques. In December, cognizant of the unattainability of the 70 dB standard, an esteemed sound expert was brought to the hearing and a new standard was established in less than an hour. This standard was 50 dBA hourly average at the outside wall of the nearest habitable structure. You saw that on the screen. It may sound like a very strict standard, but there's a catch. The concern is that no current tests were done to establish this standard and that it is an average. The standard still allows for loud, disruptive noises because it is an average. It's a quiet room. I just made a lot of noise. But when you average it, you come out quiet, and that's our problem. The problem with averaging sound, it's like averaging marital fidelity. Your spouse or partner can cheat on you 1 hour a week and still be 99.4% faithful. Similarly, a motorcycle without a muffler can go down a street on a summer evening for 15 seconds once an hour, and if you average the sound, it would be a very quiet neighborhood, but you would not characterize it as peaceful. What we are asking for is to consider putting a muffler on that motorcycle. Consider putting a sound berm to the west. The word west is very important. Further, it appears that we dance perilously close to exceeding this standard as measured in the studies. One study shows 57 dB LDN, day and night average, from the existing project plus ambient at the Linder site, while the Brennan study 3 years later predicts 55 dB hourly average at the Jones site. The machinery inventory and use pattern at this quarry changes and has changes. One machine is mobile and traverses the pit. This, combined with the vagary of market forces and the management responses to them, would make the application of data from 2003 and 2006 highly problematic. The noise profile no doubt changes daily, if not hourly. Both of the measurements were most likely generated during using different machinery profiles than exist today. Given the closeness of the standard to some of the data, it seems only prudent and rational to utilize some manner of sound attenuation structure to avoid the very probable regulatory code enforcement treadmill that would ensue. What we're asking for is to study a solution rather than studying a problem. Rather than studying a dirty kitchen floor, just get them up. Tulare County noise element, also approved by the Board of Supervisors, specifies as the second remedy of choice after distance, specifies barriers as the second remedy of choice after distance. The Brennan report for this project states that a 15-foot berm would diminish the sound by 5 decibels, but they only suggest it to the side and not the west face. There are berms specified in that report. The operator has stated he is moving the project to the east, so space should not be an issue. We are asking that this project be sent back to the planners so that such a remedy could be considered in mitigating our noise problems consistent with the CEQA process. Mitigation by sound barriers could simultaneously accommodate both the needs of the community for less obtrusive noise over the next 20 years and keep the county out of a costly enforcement quagmire, thereby saving staff time without materially compromising the production of high-quality aggregate. Concurrent with sound attenuation, we would like a consideration of hours of operation consistent with Cahuilla South, 8 to 5 Monday to Friday, when the activity is within 1,000 feet of the property line. That's out of the Cahuilla documents. Another concern we have is the clause in the permit allowing for administrative renewal without consideration of frequency, duration, or public hearing. This robs the community and the county of due process and a no-cost citizen monitoring opportunity. Since it did not prescribe duration or frequency, this permit, as written, can be administratively extended forever. Lastly, there is the issue of accuracy with respect to Exhibit A, namely the need for aggregate, stated in the statement of overriding considerations. It failed to include the 15 to 20 million tons of Cahuilla South material approved by the board, which was permitted 2 months before the circulation of the draft EIR and not corrected in the final EIR or the findings of fact. It also failed to account the considerable contribution of aggregate from the concrete recyclers. There's no medicine for the trucks that come through our town, empty and full. There's no medicine for the blasting. There is, however, medicine for the noise. It's called sound attenuation structure. You can dispense this medicine. The Tulare County Board of Supervisors and its employees are committed to serving their constituents with pride, innovation, and boldness to enhance the quality of life in Tulare County. Anybody know what that is? It says so in your mission statement. That was your mission statement. We have faith that you will act accordingly. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions, board members? No.
Nope, nope, nope.
Thank you, Mr. Pinzar. Anybody else wishing to address the board?
You know, one more thing. The 2 pictures there. The 2 pictures. The one on the front cover is shortly after blasting from Scott Linder's porch, to give you an idea of the intimacy of the project with the community. The one at the end, before the letters, is a view from the north showing the possibility of room for a sound berm. We put them next to freeways, put them around all sorts of things. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board, please step forward. Good morning.
I was not even going to say that.
Could we get you to pull the microphone down, or there you go. Thank you.
Is that about right?
Yep. That's
oh, yeah,
right.
I can hear myself. I'm tiny.
We can lower that.
How short do you think I am?
I know how I am.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, you decide. Good enough?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Tanya Martell. I live at 5009 West Grove in Visalia. The reason I'm here is because I have an interest in Lemon Grove because my 2 grandchildren live there, those beautiful little creatures there, and I am there at least 20 hours a week, sometimes 30, because I provide half of the child care for my daughter. I don't think I can add anything to Mr. Penzar's statement about the noise, but I would like to address 2 things that are part of this permit, and one of them is the expansion from 22 acres to 28. I remember when we were here a year ago or more about the 200 trucks or more, and it was restricted to 50. If he, I don't know why you would allow him expansion now. What would keep him from coming here a few months hence and say, well, I am quarrying more than 22 acres, so I need to use more trucks. And then there you would be, which we would be. Which leads to the second point that I really want to talk about, and that is the renewal that is requested to be held without a public hearing, is the way I understand it. Is that right? That's part of the request here. And that really bothers me because that means it could be done without any input from the people living there. And it's true that this one is for 20 years, and in 20 years I'm going to be dead or certainly not driving to Lemon Cove. But my children might be there, my grandchildren might be there, and I would like them to have a voice in what would be allowed and what would not be allowed in their community that would affect their health. And I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time?
My name is Melissa Black. I live at 24423 Avenue 328 in Lemon Cove. I'm a professor of English at Porterville College, and I've lived in Lemon Cove for 11 years. So thank you very much for giving us all the chance to talk today. I really appreciate it as a person who lives on Avenue 328. As a person who lives on Avenue 328, the request for expansion of the quarry comes as a really awful shock. Owner Thomas Cairns has repeatedly said that he's a, quote, good neighbor, but the noise of this operation is already audible in our community, quite audible. And its truck traffic merging onto Highway 198 is dangerous, it's noisy. And as I've noted publicly before, on Avenue 328, which is opposite the quarry's access road, as you saw on the overhead, 5 of the 6 houses currently have children in them, 5 of the 6. Lemon Cove is a true community. Its youngest and most vulnerable residents deserve more than a good neighbor business that assaults them each day with noise and with air pollution. At the very least, Lemon Cove Granite must ensure that it mitigates all noise and air pollution that's generated by its current production scale, not by growth, and especially not by stealth growth, which sounds like it could potentially occur. Lemon Cove Granite should not be allowed to continue to operate without these mitigations. And lacking these, the entire operation should be shut down and the land returned to agricultural use. This is what befits acreage in such proximity to both a town and a K-8 school. Okay, Lemon Cove is a community, and we do have a wonderful K-8 school that many people in Exeter apply to have their children come and attend. I think that's important, and it's a wonderful place. And so in closing, I just ask you, please protect our community, most importantly, our children. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for me?
Question, board? Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I had one other thing. As I was listening to the discussion here, I wanted to suggest more mitigation to start rather than mitigation as problems occur. It sounds to me that families with children have to make complaints before any action would be taken, and that sounds to me like a hardship. I strongly...
That sounds to me hardship.
I'm sorry. Thank you. In other words, I would prefer, as a citizen of the county and as a resident of Lemon Cove, that more be done initially rather than done after we've been suffering. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, too. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Last call. Here we go again.
Anya Martel again. I'm sorry, I'm coming up again because I want to be sure that I was understood that I oppose the renewal by administrative hearing only, and I don't think I said that in so many words, and that I also oppose the expansion. But my greatest concern is the renewal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the public? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. We do have it listed for closed session. I don't know that we need to go there.
I just had a question, if I could, of staff. Mr. Chairman. This is an expansion of the size of the site. It's not exactly an expansion of operations, is it?
No, it's not an expansion of operations, and in fact, the temporary crusher also allowed him to operate in that area. You want me to pull up the picture? Or?
Well, you might explain yourself. I was asking about whether or not, because I think there's a concern. People think this is an expansion of operations. This is actually, in a mining operation, by its very nature, ultimately you have to move. You have to, because you run out of the material that you're mining, and so in this case, they're looking to access more of the property to continue this mining operation, but the operation itself is not growing. The same number of trucks, the same numbers of, in fact, we're having more constraints on the hours and so forth than it had before.
That's correct.
So the actual operation is no greater than it has been until now.
Yes.
That was my question. The other thing is just a comment from this side of the dais, and that is, I appreciate the fact that the applicant is willing to go above and beyond what our own requirements are.
Yes.
I personally don't like that approach. I really feel like people should be able to look at what the county requirements are and abide by those requirements, and they would be considered to be acceptable. Otherwise, there's something that's said about our requirements. And sometimes we do that, as in this case, where we say, well, our situation may be somewhat antiquated, and people are in a more people are beginning to look at this more closely, and they now require lower levels and so forth, and that's fine. But I would prefer that those sort of things come from this board in terms of policy than coming in the other direction, which happens in this case. But I appreciate the fact that the applicant was willing to comply with more stringent standards than we require as a county.
I just had one question. When was the noise element, when was that established? Was that, I think it was 1988?
I believe it was 1987 or
87
yeah.
or 88. Okay, and is there, has that been revisited, or, I mean, I don't necessarily know. I would like maybe just to take a look at that and just to make sure that still is, that requirement suits today's standards and the life that we live today, basically, because life today is much different than life 20 years ago, as I can attest to since I was 4 years old at that time.
Good morning. I'm David Claxton, Chief Planner of Long Range Planning for Tulare County. Address your question regarding the noise element. As we're going through the draft general plan update, we are re-looking at the entire noise element.
Okay, great.
We'll be updating that. And to reiterate Ann's statement of earlier, the plan as it is right now is simply an expansion of the acreage, not the operation itself. The total annual tonnage that will be pulled from the site will be the same in the future as it is right now. The number of daily truck trips that will be in the future will be as they are now. To address the question with regard to the automatic extensions, under condition number 7, it states that an amendment may be processed that would extend the expiration date of the permit, provided that's the only aspect that is being changed, is that ending date. If there are any other changes in operation, i.e. tonnage, annual tonnage, truck trips, or acreage, it would have to come back before the county for review and approval. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Through a public hearing, or?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
One other question, Dave, I understand the idea of a sound berm. One of the thoughts that crossed my mind as it was presented today by the appellant was that you do have noise that is, when you blast, that's noisy. Strikes me that a sound berm might not stop that noise. I mean, in other words, it seems like you're going to have that noise. That's part and parcel of this project. It just happens. It doesn't happen every day. It happens periodically, but that's part of the mining operation. You have to do it. And I'm just curious if I'm right in my assumption. I mean, a berm that might be effective for ongoing kind of noise, how effective is that going to be when you're looking at a blasting opportunity?
I'm not a noise expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I would certainly agree with you. If you put a berm along the west side, that is not going to guarantee that as the operations move through the various portions of the site and the blasting locations change as they move their operation, that the noise impacts won't necessarily change, so that at one point you may be getting more noise concentration to the south than you are to the west or to the north or east.
Other questions? Staff?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I remember when we sat up here for weeks on the Kauai River rock permit, and we had a lot of testimony about why we couldn't get our aggregate out of the foothills instead of in the bottom of a riverbed. So no matter where you mine, you're going to make someone uncomfortable. It's just the fact of how the business is. That they're noisy, they're loud, and there's vehicles. This mine's been in operation for a long time. I was very concerned when it first came up because of the traffic. And I believe that any increase in capacity and movement would definitely need to come back. And because it had been permitted in the past for 50 trucks, and we're not exceeding that limit, I believe that question is answered. And I would also like to say that if you have an airport, if you have a mining operation, and you move into that area and you build a home or you buy a home, that's a pre-existing condition that's been there. It's not something that you move in and change because it was there, and that was part of the landscape of the area. So with that, I move that we deny the appeal.
Moved by Supervisor Ishida to deny the appeal.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Worthley.
Could I make a point on the advice of County Council? We'd like to slightly modify our request. The wording there, deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission decision, but a third request that you direct the clerk of the board to file a notice of determination with the county clerk recorder within 5 working days.
Okay, I accept that into the motion.
Second accepts.
So we have an amended motion and a second by the same. Cast your votes, please. Approved 5-0. Thank you. We do have closed session items. We do have an addendum as well, item G, and we will, after county council makes her pitch, we will excuse ourselves for closed session.
Are you asking me if you have items on for closed session, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
You do. Items A and B on your board's regular closed session agenda are off agenda. You have items C through G on your regular closed session and addendum. I do not anticipate any announcements.
Thank you. We will adjourn to closed session.